Okay, now I want to ask you about your teaching career. When did you start giving the lessons? I mean, in person, live. And how it transformed to your study with Adam platform as you have now?
Well, I always taught guitar. Even in my 20s, I taught in music schools in New York City.
So you work just in an average music school, yeah?
Like many guys, I taught little kids how to hold a guitar. I taught people their first chords.
Was
I
it
taught groups
some kind of classical guitar or classic guitar?
Sometimes I taught them classical. I actually, one of the schools I taught at had a very nice system for teaching little kids, where we would only teach them melodies. And it was with a cool, very nice little book, and they'd get little stars and stickers and rewards, and and then slowly we would build them into chords, and it was a way to teach them so that they wouldn't get frustrated. Because chords are very hard for kids, and sight reading out of these books with the three notes, the sight reading guitar books, they don't really have a lot of fun. So I did a lot of that, man. I mean, I survived doing that and doing gigs in New York for 10 to 15 years,
So it transformed into your info products, yeah? Like Jackson 5 arrangements and then Stevie Wonder arrangements, yeah?
Well, I'll tell you how that went down. Mike Longo, my teacher, and I hope it's okay to talk about this, because a lot of the time,
of course
of the time, people just only want to think that a musical artist thinks all about music only. And of course, all of us, no matter what we do, we got to think, well, I'm going to try to run a business here. So how do I do that? And when I learned from Mike Longo, he had books that he wrote. I don't think I have any here in the room.
They were books about rhythm, yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
He has books about rhythm. He has books about music theory, about voicing, and they are incredible. And he made them himself, Xeroxed them, put a little binder, and you'd have to, if you were his student, he'd say, you're going to buy this book from me, and we're going to work through it, because everything was laid out and organized. And it was like, $25 or $30 at the time for the book. And these books were incredible. And it was not with a publisher. And he would advertise in the back of a magazine in the USA called Jazz Times. And he would get orders for his books. And so, we were talking not only at the music lessons, but I had a very close relationship with him for many years. And we'd be on the phone and he'd say, yeah, man, I'm just over at my house. I got a bunch of orders today. I'm sending out books to people. I went, wow, that's cool. And he encouraged me, because I was like 22 or 23, and I was going, man, I don't have enough gigs. I was playing in Harlem with the organ groups, but not making a lot of money. And he said, man, read this. And he gave me a book on basic marketing, basic stuff, about how to write a headline. This is before the internet exploded. This was still, people just had their own website, but there was no Facebook, or there wasn't even MySpace. There was no, you could send an email, I don't know how they did it back then, but I read this and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. And he says, listen, man, if you have something like this running alongside of your playing, that'll really help. And he says, you don't have to work for a publisher or another company. You do it yourself. Right? And so I was at the National Guitar Summer Workshop teaching one year. I was showing them how I worked on my technique. I was actually, I think technically I was a much better electric guitar player than I am an acoustic player, because I could really play pretty fast and get around the neck and flat pick and with the jazz guitar stuff I could really get around very well, because I practiced a lot of very slow, relaxed technical stuff for many years. And I was teaching a class, showing them, and their eyes were like this big. And I said to them, guys, if I made a book of this exercises, would this be something you'd be interested in? And they said, oh yeah, man, this is great stuff. So I made a book that year, and I went back the next year. I sold so many books that I think that the guys at the workshop got a little bit upset with me because they had their own little bookstore. They had their own little bookstore and they wanted to sell their stuff. And so here's some young teacher selling a bunch of books. And it was like, it got a little bit weird, the feeling.
It was book with some kind of exercises? Or?
It's on my website. It's the Virtuoso Technique book.
So it's available?
It's available. I mean, you know, some people steal it. I hate to say it, but you could probably find it somewhere on the internet because it's a PDF. You know, PDFs are not so safe. And I'm probably going to make like a video course about how I work on that stuff and demonstrate it, and you know, at a later time. It's on AdamRafferty.com. So that was an eye-opening. I went, whoa, and I realized I had this thing going. And then Mike helped me run some advertisements in some magazines.
And it was before your Korean fingerstyle started?
Oh, yeah. This is back when I was playing jazz guitar. And so then I did a second workshop for just a few guys, but I turned the book what I was showing them into a workshop, into a book. The thing that was tricky that I was starting to come up against, so now I had 2 jazz books that I wrote. And what happened was I started getting guys saying, I don't read music. I only read tabs. This started, you know, people got interested. And I thought, at the time, I was a jazz guitar player. I said, well, listen, you got to learn how to read music. That was my attitude. And then I started to see that there was this guy, Robert Conti, in the jazz magazine. There's a magazine called Just Jazz Guitar. And I was looking at the guys who were advertising stuff. And he was advertising, I'm going to teach you how to play. You don't need to read music. You don't need to know anything. You just put your fingers where I show you. And you'll be playing jazz guitar in no time. And he's really good at selling his stuff. And that's when I decided I need to make something a little bit more friendly. So I did the DVD that I just put up on Study with Adam, the jazz DVD. So now that was the next thing. I thought, let me make it friendlier for people, and that was a big project. I mean, I had to go to a studio and I had to figure out, where do I make the DVDs and do I advertise it and all that kind of thing. So I was getting some practice advertising DVDs or advertising books and selling them. Next, after I did the Superstition, everybody was asking me, man, can you send me the tabs? I probably shouldn't say this, but it's the truth. I made a PDF and then I started selling tabs without knowing about licensing. And I sold a bunch of PDFs in one day. I mean, the orders came in really fast, about, a couple $100. I mean, it was about, 30 orders or something like that. And on my email list was Stefan Grossman from the Guitar Workshop. He has a bunch of videos. I don't know if you know him, but he is he's a very well-known blues guitar teacher, and he has this huge company where he sells Chet Atkins videos and Woody Mann videos and Buster B. Jones videos. And if you're looking at a Buster B. Jones video, it's Stefan's company. And he emailed me, thank God. He says, Adam, you could get into a lot of trouble. You don't have licensing. He says, you need a license for this. And I went, oh my God, I didn't know that. And I emailed everybody who bought the PDF. I said, please delete it, print it for yourself, delete it. I made a big mistake. And then one day I took it back away.
So you mean that you can't sell the tabulature even for your arrangement of the product?
You can't sell them.
Okay.
Everybody who's doing it is going to get in trouble at some point. It's illegal. And the company can sue you And it's really not worth it. You can get into really big trouble. I know, it's a little bit harder when people give it away for free. But the companies, I know a guy who just got busted about a few months ago. A famous guy. I'm not going to tell you who. He was selling PDFs from his website, had a nice little business going, and the publishers came at him, boom, and he had to stop. So you can't do that. At least in the USA, maybe in Russia, there's not so many controls. What I did was I contacted all the publishers and I got the permission. And I was very lucky to get the permission. I had the Stevie Wonder tunes and I said, can I teach these 4 tunes and do the sheet music? And they gave me the permission. So, and then that was step 1. Then I had Billie Jean and I thought, wow, I'll do a Michael Jackson thing. No, not possible. And I asked and I asked and I asked and I said, forget it. I was going to quit. But I had these other tunes like I'll Be There, and a friend of mine said do a Jackson 5. And so I asked the publishers about that. It was okay. Then I did the Stevie Wonder number 2. But now I asked if I could do a Stevie Wonder number 3 and they said no. So I don't know what's going on in the world of publishing. I mean, it's you have to write in. They have to say it's okay. It's complicated. And so that's part of the reason, the law is you can't make a DVD, and the law is you can't sell printed music. I have people that want to learn these songs from me. How can I teach them? And I said, if I do a membership site, they didn't buy the song from me, they bought the membership. See? And so that's why, for example, on Study with Adam, I give those study sheets. And Hal Leonard, they came to me and they said, we would love to do a book with you on, the songs that you're teaching so you could actually, teach them. Would you be interested? So they know about Study with Adam. And I said, guys, I just want you to know I don't give away any sheet music. I don't give away any sheet music. And I said, I'm too busy right now to do a book for you guys. And then the other thing is with Study with Adam, I have the student interaction also, so that there's still a school there.
Am I right of saying that you came to this Study with Adam platform by the punch of publishers, by the pressing of publishers?
It was partially that, and also I liked the idea because I copied Martin Taylor's site, meaning the artist works. I looked at the features and I thought this is a great idea to interact with students. And it's different from Skype because all the interactions get saved and then this library is growing on the site like a blog. You could look up yesterday and look at all the other students' lessons if you want it for yesterday. And so I thought that this was a really cool idea to be able to teach students with the posting video and posting an answer.
You mentioned Mike Longo as your tutor, and tell us about your musical education in general during your childhood, for example. Was it interesting and what was it for you? What gave it to you? And maybe my question is strange, but what kind of music, in your opinion, is necessary for the kids to study? Is it better for parents to send their children to classical music school, or it's okay to start from modern music?
Well, you asked about my musical education. I'll tell you quickly. I started with guitar lessons as a kid with this guy, Woody Mann. And then
And you went to music school? Or
I just took private lessons once a week. And then I took some time off. And then I studied classical guitar when I was 15 years old for a couple of years. And I went to the university for 1 year as a classical guitarist. Classical guitar. I didn't enjoy studying in the university that much. Classical guitar, the classical guitar department. There was a lot of strange pressure among the students and from the top teacher there. It was a little bit uncomfortable. But in music school, I was exposed to the music theory classes, which for me were very interesting. And I got to hear a lot of people play these great music by the great composers on piano or in ensembles. You know, one of my best friends was a classical pianist, and I would hear Brahms and Beethoven and Chopin and Mozart and Bach. And I was also exposed to jazz. In the music school, they didn't really have a jazz department, but people would play jazz. And I said, what are they doing? And I remember my first time trying to jam with a jazz group. I didn't know what I was doing. It was a disaster. But I started to sense that's what I want to learn how to do. And I was exposed to so much music in a university. It was great. It was great. I stopped doing classical guitar. I had a little phase where I got into this hip hop thing with my best friend, where it was this weird side project that just started to have a life of its own.
During 90s, yeah? In the very beginning of 90s.
Yeah. And so guitar was actually kind of in the background. I played for myself a little bit, but I was more doing this hip-hop thing where we were actually getting pretty well known and doing shows. And I think that's where I got to have a lot of experience being on stage. Then I became interested in jazz. And when I started studying with Mike, it made me much stronger with all the classical theory stuff, because he was even better with that theory stuff than the music university. He's a master. He's an absolute master of music, and there was no getting around. I had to study and learn that stuff from him. And so to be exposed to Mozart for me, even though I can't play any Mozart, but I play through a little bit very badly on the piano. I play a little bit of piano. Or to be exposed to Bach, or to be exposed to jazz, or to be exposed to Stevie Wonder, all of these things are really important. So everybody should have all of that. If there was a way to follow where a child is interested, that's the main thing for the first few years. Go with where the kid, or where somebody really wants to do it. Then later, when you become a teenager, or, university, or, high school, then the idea about discipline and, hey, well, maybe you have to work on this even if it's not only fun. You can do that. But for a little kid to be too much discipline in the beginning it's not fun. Then it's you don't enjoy it,